With me to discuss those stories are French-Algerian journalist Nabila Ramdani and law and politics professor at Temple University in Philadelphia, Susan Sullivan. Good to have both of you ladies with me. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. So let us get straight into the fray. President Trump facing off against Joe Biden. This is the first election TV debate tonight in Cleveland, Ohio. Susan, this is a very familiar part of the campaign trail, isn't it? Pitting the final two rivals against each other. What do you make of it all? Do you like these debates?
Well, I do like these debates. I found them very entertaining. In fact, I think tonight for this first debate, it's not so much what Joe Biden is going to say, I think. It's more about how he's going to say it, because to me, this is like a first date with America. They're going to meet him, they're going to check him out, they're going to see whether they want to go any further with him. So it's quite entertaining to me.
Nabila, I think that's a great way of putting it, Susan. And Nabila, I often wonder how interesting these debates are to people outside the US. But I think Susan's right. I think that there's a sort of sense of anticipation in seeing how two very different speaking styles are going to come off tonight.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree anymore. And I think for most of us, it feels like a couple of weeks since Trump was lining up for a debate like this with Hillary Clinton. But here we are all over again, and the stakes are just as high. I think what is certain is that people take the debates very seriously indeed. And this one will last an hour and a half on every network and will be commercial free. They are expecting an audience of around 100 million in the US alone. And America was the original TV society. And despite challenges from other technology, it remains a country that is massively influenced by what appears on the small screen. And many will be watching on their devices tonight. But the basic fact is that two men arguing with each other will dominate the attention of the population of the USA and indeed those in other parts of the world for the entire debate.
I wonder how much of a killer instinct Joe Biden is going to have, because there's such a lot of things to go at with Trump. Susan, we had the recent revelations of Donald Trump's rather extraordinary tax records.
Well, I think we're going to be hearing about the infinitesimally small amount of taxes that Donald Trump paid in the last couple of years. But I do think, yes, this is going to be a bit like a boxing match with these two men coming out swinging. But I think, we know Donald Trump. We know how big he is. We know that he's the master of the grand gesture and the statements that are grounded sometimes in fact, sometimes not so much. But we need to see Joe Biden come out. No one's going to bully Donald Trump, but we need to see Joe Biden come out guns blazing. He needs to be a presence. He needs to have the sound bites. He needs to be able to really make an impression. And, Joe Biden isn't the best. That isn't his forte. He doesn't always do so well in this kind of situation. He has a tendency to make faux pas. He says things, he puts his foot in his mouth. So I think tonight we may see that. But the important thing, if we do,
well, you know what,
is that
I think it's something like 2 o'clock in the morning our time. So I'm not sure I'll be watching it live, but I'm sure we'll catch the highlights after the event. Let's move on to coronavirus. New rapid COVID-19 tests being rolled out to low-income countries starting in October. Nabila, this is a test that gives results in 15 to 20 minutes, less than 30 minutes. Is this a game changer?
Well, I think so. I mean, coronavirus is, of course, the story that is dominating all our lives at the moment. And we are all looking for some positive messages about it. And this certainly sounds very encouraging indeed. Without an antidote, testing is a way of combating this horrible disease. And if this testing can be quick and easy, as quick and easy as possible, effectively, then so much the better. These millions of tests will be offered by the World Health Organizations to the developing world. And as you said, they are said to show on the spot results in 15 to 30 minutes. And at $5 each, they are relatively cheap. And crucially, they are quick and easy, but also of very high quality. And in particular, they will allow mass screening of health workers who are dying in disproportionate numbers in low-income countries. And as we all know, the pandemic spread through the world extremely quickly, and it is only through global initiatives like this one that it will be beaten. And I think just as positively, richer countries such as Britain that have signed up to the access to COVID tools initiatives will also be ordering the tests. Germany has already ordered 20 million tests, and France and Switzerland are doing the same thing. So I think it really is all very encouraging.
And everyone's talking about this going to make a huge difference. Susan, when you look at the coronavirus pandemic and government handling of it, governments seem to have been very much on the back foot when it comes to organising mass testing in terms of capacity and speed of results. Why has it taken them so long to get their acting gear?
Well, getting their acting gear, as you say, has been a real uphill battle for them. I mean, the mismanagement of testing has just been extraordinary. With the resources that we have available to us, with the science, with the technology, there is really no excuse. And the beauty of this $5 test is that we will be able to isolate people who need to be isolated. There's this huge backlash about people being locked down needlessly. So we can test people, we can isolate the right people. So it really is a major development and one that's long overdue. So I'm really delighted to hear about that development.
Let's move on to Nigeria. Now, this is actually quite a difficult story. This is a 22-year-old man sentenced to death in Nigeria for blasphemy. UN human rights experts calling for his release. Nabila, I mean, what this man did apparently was record and share a song on WhatsApp, which was said to insult the Prophet Muhammad. He says he made a mistake, but he's now been given the death sentence.
Well, we're always hearing about the dark side of instant communication and all the hugely popular platforms that we communicate on. But this is an absolute horror story. And all this young man called Yahya did was share a song he had written and produced on WhatsApp. And politicians in his home country of Nigeria started calling for his execution. I mean, this is, of course, linked to a very sinister interpretation of Sharia law, and people are quite literally taking the law into their own hands over this. A mob burned down Yahya's family's home in March, and he has received death threats over and above what the very unpleasant local politicians have decided. And all kinds of high-minded explanations are being put forward as to why this is a grotesque violation of human rights. But I don't think anyone needs to read them to know that these are horrible crimes. But everybody needs to everything needs to be done to look after Yahya. And there are so many examples of people being effectively tried and convicted online. But this is one of the very worst.
Yeah, and as you say, there's other examples in Nigeria. A 13-year-old boy convicted on charges that he'd blasphemed Allah in an argument with a friend. I mean, Susan, it's hard enough to understand how an opinion or a badly formed choice of words can lead to a death sentence, let alone that this is upheld by a country's court of law.
Well, I mean, this goes to the heart of the system of government, and it goes to the heart of a government, a country that is going to embrace Sharia as its foundation for its legal system. I mean, this is going to the heart of free speech, free expression, artistic expression. If you can't speak, if you can't criticize, if you can't protest, you can't change anything. So this isn't a crime. This is a fundamental right. And I think we do tend to focus on this incredible, draconian, gruesome miscarriage of justice and the punishment. But I think we also need to look at the behavior, because publishing a song on WhatsApp is not a crime. And the fundamental principle of freedom of speech and expression is really what's at risk here, as well as this young man's freedom and life.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to hope that just the weight of public opinion is going to make a difference in these situations. Let's move on to our final story. This is a little quirky one for you ladies. This is cosmetic professionals reporting an increase in Botox and filler requests from patients because of apparently something referred to as Zoom face. Now, this clearly doesn't apply to any of us here, I would say. But Nabila, what do you make of this?
Well, the beauty industry is a very rich and powerful one, so I must say I'm always very suspicious about stories like these. The claim is that people are becoming far more aware of their imperfections because of COVID-19, as they effectively keep seeing themselves on screen. Well, I seem to remember that there were plenty of men and women who worried about their looks well before we had even heard of coronavirus. And nobody ever became poor by playing on the insecurities of human beings, frankly. So cosmetic professionals are certainly likely to report a healthy business in Botox and filler requests at all times, because they make a huge amount of money from these sales, and they want the business to expand. But what I have noticed is actually people using filters and other technical tricks to try and improve their looks when they are on screen. Social media.
Well, this is exactly what I wanted to ask you. I get that sitting in front of a Zoom screen or any other video call and you're looking at your own face and you're thinking, oh my goodness, one eyebrow is higher than the other, or I've got crow's feet or whatever. Isn't it cheaper and quicker to just pick a better filter, Susan?
Well, there's actually, for those of us who are on Zoom, it seems constantly, it's like living in a reality TV show. There is actually a feature in your video section that says, make me look better, or words to that effect. So, obviously the first thing we do is turn that on. But, this is a booming industry. And as a professor who has, hundreds of students on my screen who are in their 20s, and I'm constantly looking at myself surrounded by these beautiful young people, so I can see the temptation to go for the injectables and the Botox. But I think I'll stick with the I'll stick with the technology for now.
Well, apparently, I would say I was slightly worried to discover that it's not just injectables, which kind of makes sense, doesn't it? If you're looking at your own face. Apparently, there's an increase in breast implants and liposuction. I mean, what kind of Zoom calls were these?
Well, I don't know, but they're certainly not the ones I've been having.
But there is a serious angle, isn't there? That coronavirus restrictions, I suppose, and lockdown maybe give us a sense of helplessness, and perhaps being able to change or improve your appearance, perhaps that gives you a sense of control. Do you think there's something like that about this, Nabila?
Well, I think social media is certainly full of people trying to show how beautiful and glamorous they are. But again, I don't think this has anything to do with the coronavirus, frankly. I think with luck, we all get back to meeting up in person, and before long, all these artificial developments will become less important.
Well, I think both of you ladies look absolutely wonderful as you are. Thank you very much indeed for joining me, Susan and Nabila. And that's it for this edition of Behind the Headlines.